For today's lesson, we will be going over Unit 3, Lesson 13, Session 3. So for this assignment, you want to be in your November 9th folder, and you want to open the assignment with Cami. And looking at this assignment, we are going to be finding equivalent ratios. So the first problem is to make sense of the problems. We're going to try it. So it says a streaming music channel always plays the same ratio of pop songs to hip hop songs. The point on the graph shows the number of hip hop songs played for every 3 pop songs. Based on the relationship in the graph, how many hip hop songs does the channel play for every 12 pop songs? So we've got some information here. It says the point on the graph shows the number of hip hop for every pop songs, right? And we want to know if we're comparing pop songs to hip hop, we have a 3-to-2 ratio. That's what our ordered pair tells us. So when we have 3-to-2, we want to know how many hip hop songs are played if 12 pop songs are played. Now, there's a few different ways to look at this. So we had talked about using double number lines, using models, using tables. So there's different ways, just figuring out multiplying, like how do you get to the equivalent ratio that way. So there's different ways to look at this and to decide how to find the equivalent ratios. So what we want to do is we want to say, okay, how do we get from 3 to 12? And when we're finding equivalent ratios, we either multiply or divide when we're finding equivalency. So 3 times 4 would give me 12. So if I multiply by the same on the other side, times 4, 2 times 4 would give me 8. So 8 hip-hop songs for every pop song. That is probably the most common way that students choose to find equivalency, is to figure out what you're multiplying or dividing by to get to the number that you're seeking. In today's lesson, though, they want to point out some other strategies to use. So you can make a table of equivalent ratios from an ordered pair. So back up here in our phone, this is a coordinate grid. It has an x-axis and a y-axis, and you use these little grids to plot points. So they went over to 3 and then up to 2, and they got 3, 2 for the ratio. So that's where that came from. So when you have ordered pairs, you can make a table of information, such as this one here. So we know that pop songs was our x-axis, hip hop songs was our y. So we have a 3-to-2. And we know that every time this is increasing by 3, which is where they get the plus 3. So 3 plus 3 is 6, 6 plus 3 is 9, and 9 plus 3 is 12. Then we can come over to the other side and say the same thing. This time, though, we're adding by 2 because we start with 2 here. So 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 2 is 6, 6 plus 2 would be 8. So the same way to get the same answer, because this is now a new way to write a ratio. We're used to writing them with a colon or the word 2 in between, but you can also write them as an ordered pair. And you talked about ordered pairs in 5th grade math when you talked about coordinate grids, also known as a coordinate plane. So here is a coordinate grid, a more close-up version. And we have our original ratio or ordered pair of 3-to-2. So again, just remember that this is just another way to write a ratio. Now, ordered pairs typically will follow a pattern. So if we have that pattern of adding 3 pop songs, so pop songs go across, right? Hip hop songs go up. So we go over 3, up 2, over 3, up 2, over 3, up 2, which puts our point right there where we want it, of 12 to 8. So our ratio is 12 to 8, which means there's 8 hip hop songs if there's 12 pop songs. So we can follow a pattern on our coordinate grid. We can create a table of ordered pairs. So just different strategies, like I said, to find the same information that we've been finding. So number 4 says, how can you use a point on a graph to find another point that represents an equivalent ratio? Explain why your method works. So if we are looking at this, then we are saying, okay, you can use a point on a graph to find another point that represents the equivalent ratio. So when we were looking back here at this here, we were following the pattern of our ordered pair. So that is what you would do. You would follow the ordered pair pattern. For example, our thing was 3, 2, right? Over 3, up 2, because our original ordered pair was 3, 2. If our ordered pair was 4, 1, our pattern would be over 4, up 1. If our ordered pair was 5, 7, it would be over 5, up 7. So as long as you follow that pattern for whatever your ratio, your ordered pair is, that determines the pattern that you need to follow. Number 5 says, how could you use ordered pairs of multiplication to find equivalent ratios? So our original ordered pair was 3, 2. And we want to know 12 pop songs. Well, X, that was our pop songs, right? So this would be 12. And we need to know our Y, which was hip hop songs. Well, how do we get from 3 to 12? We said earlier we could multiply times 4. You do that to the other side, multiply times 4, and it gives you your answer of 8 hip hop songs. So different strategies to do what we've been doing, finding equivalent ratios. I will tell you that being able to see these as ordered pairs and plot them on a coordinate grid, that is something you will see on testing. So we are going to practice that. This is a typo. This table should not be there. So we have a fire hose in this problem, and for every 100 feet of hose, you have 4 gallons of water. So that's our original ratio. And we want to be able to fill in all of these missing pieces. So if we know that we have 100 to 4, right? That's our ordered pair. And we want to come up here to the top, right? We have 1 gallon of water, but we don't know the feet in our hose. So we would say, okay, well, how do we get from 4 to 1 by multiplying or dividing? Well, we're getting smaller, so we would divide. 4 divided by 4 is going to be 1. So I divide over here by 4, and I get 25. So this is 25, 1. Then I look at, okay, I've got 50, right? 50 to something, and my original was 104, right? Well, how do I get from 50 to 100 or 100 to 50 if I was going the other way, right? Divide by 2. If I divide by 2 over here, I get 2. So I have 52. And then we're going to follow the same type of steps for the last ordered pair here. We're going to say, okay, our original was 100 to 4, and we know that we have 12 gallons of water, but we're not sure how many feet of hose that is. So to get from 4 to 12, 4 times 3 would get me to 12. So what is 100 times 3? Well, that would be 300, right? So 312. So again, still ratios, but now we're writing them in a new way as ordered pairs. And in 5th grade, you talked about how to plot those on a coordinate grid. So that's what we're going to look at here. Enrique has a container of 32 fluid ounces of orange juice. So he has 32 ounces of orange juice. He's filling glasses with 1 cup of juice. The point on the graph shows the ratio of fluid ounces to cups. So the point on the graph has our ratio, 8 to 1, right? That's what's right here, 8 to 1. Based on this ratio, how many glasses can Enrique fill from the container? Plot a point on the graph to show the number of cups in 32 fluid ounces and show your work. So there's lots of ways that we could do this, right? We could create a table. We could figure out, okay, multiplication and comparing the ratios themselves. But the strategy I want us to look at together is using this coordinate grid. So if I'm using the coordinate grid, then I know that my pattern follows my ordered pair, 8 to 1, over 8, up 1, over 8, up 1. So if I'm looking at my scale here, 8, 16, that is by eights, right? So pay attention to that. So in between 8 and 16 would be another number, which is right here, right? So just remember that as you're doing this. So over 8, I would need to go over to here and then up 1. So that would put me here. Over 8, up 1. Notice I'm not going 8 squares, I'm just going 8 units according to my units down here, my scale. Over 8, up 1. I have now reached 32 on my x-axis, so I need to look and see where I'm at on my y. I'm at 4. So he can fill up 4 cups. Now, there's different ways to get to this. So we could say that we could create a table. I could have my original ratio here of 8 to 1, right? And look at this as ordered pairs and say, okay, 32 ounces, because it's ounces to cups, and figure out what this would be. So to get from 8 to 32, I would multiply times 4, do the same over here, times 4, which is what a lot of students will do or look at. Also, students have noticed that when you have a a ratio where you're comparing a value to 1, then you could also just divide right off the bat. So if you have 32 fluid ounces and 8 ounces per 1 cup, then you could go ahead and say 32 divided by 8, which would be 4. So he fills up 4 cups. So lots of different ways to get to the same answer, but you do need to understand this pattern of how these ratios work. That this first number is your x. You go over that amount and then up your y. Over the amount for x, up the amount for y. Over x, up y. So make sure that you are understanding how to use that coordinate grid, coordinate plane. That brings us to number 9. So number 9 wants you to complete, it is the last problem, and it wants you to complete this table of information. So you're finding your numbers that complete the table and then using these as points to plot on your coordinate plane. So we have an original ratio here. For every 4-ounce serving of Yum Yum's yogurt, it contains 8 grams of protein. So yogurt to protein is what we're comparing. Well, 4 ounces to 8 grams. So 4 to 8 is our original. Now we can use that to figure out equivalency, right? So to get from 4 to 8, I multiply times 2. 8 times 2 is 16. And I could keep going in that way. Or I can use my adding. 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 plus 4 is 12. 12 plus 4 is 16. And then the same over here, but I'm starting with 8. 8 plus 8 is 16. 16 plus 8 is 24. And then 24 plus 8 would be 32. So now I have my points. I have 4, 8. That's my first one, right? So I go over to 4, up to 8, plot my first point. And then I go over 1, which would be over 4, really, right? Because each square is worth 4, because 0, 4, 8, right? So over 4, up 8, over 4, up 8, over 4, over 4, up 8. So I could keep going, plotting all of my points along the way, following that pattern of over 4, up 8. So make sure that you do answer that question as well in your practice. Maybe even try it on your own. I should have mentioned that before I went over it with you. But that is it for today's lesson, and I will see you guys next time.